Right, so as Jay mentioned, that's my name, Thabelo Netshivhungululu. Right, it's a whole BIM coordination of its own. But yeah, I've been in the industry for around 16 years. And the idea here is, I took this quote from Royal Haskell's website, right? And they're really focusing now a lot on digital twins, right? And they have a lot of white papers on it. And this quote says, to successfully implement a digital twin strategy, you need to have a defined purpose and a clear understanding of your business needs, right? But no matter what your objectives are, all digital twins have one thing in common. They enable a process of continuous innovation, right? And talking from a construction or a design build perspective, a lot of times when we get a brief from a client, we just jump into it. We never think about what the building will do to the environment, specifically sustainability, right? How will construction work, etc. So we need to start thinking. I'm hoping with this presentation, it will inspire us to start thinking of the end picture and how an owner would operate that building, right? That's the idea with this whole presentation. Okay, and what you can expect from this, I'm going to discuss why it matters, what digital threads and digital trends can bring out of your projects, right? And hopefully you guys will find value for your businesses and also see how you can set up your projects to produce a proper digital twin. Are we good? Cool. Right, and yeah, let me start off here.
Digital twins get their start. In the 1960s, NASA was one of the first agencies to use mirroring technology to replicate systems in space. Notably, NASA created a replica of Apollo 13, which became critical in the midst of its challenging mission. Engineers were able to test solutions on the replica to avoid further disaster. Dr. Michael Greaves, Chief Scientist for Advanced Manufacturing at the Florida Institute of Technology, introduced the concept of the digital twin at an American Society of Mechanical Engineers conference in 2002. He proposed a product lifecycle management center that contained the elements of a digital twin, the physical space, the virtual space, and the flow of information between the two. The manufacturing industry was quick to adopt digital twins, and the architecture, engineering, and construction industry followed suit, with the help of technological advancements like BIM, or Building Information Modeling. Today, digital twin technology plays a big part in the digital transformation of the design, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and maintenance industries. A digital twin starts with knowledge of the assets and spaces that make up a facility. This type of descriptive twin is a live, editable version of design and construction data, such as a visual replica of assets or facilities. An informative twin has an added layer of operational and sensory data. As more and more data is added, the twin becomes richer and richer and more strongly linked to its physical counterpart. Predictive twins are able to leverage this operational data for insights, while comprehensive twins simulate future scenarios and consider what-if questions. In the future, twins will become autonomous, able to learn and act on behalf of users. Because digital twins can gather key information about things like population growth, natural resource supply levels, and historical data on environmental disasters, they can help build more resilient cities and infrastructures as the world changes. Eventually, an entire ecosystem of digital twins will help industries respond to global challenges with powerful, simultaneous changes. Right now, digital twins are helping operations and facility managers respond faster by removing the need for complex and time-consuming maintenance documents. Owners can gather information from the design and build phases to make faster business decisions, lowering operational and maintenance costs. Professionals on-site can predict material and labor cycles, reducing waste and enhancing safety. By helping professionals gain more insight into the inner workings of the world, digital twins are becoming partners in building a better future.
Cool. Right, so I just showed that video just to show you digital twins concept didn't really start. It's not a new term that Autodesk is trying to do to sell to get you guys to get into the whole digital space, right? It's a concept that started from years back, and as you've seen in the video, NASA are one of the guys that pioneered digital twinning. And the reason for it is to be able to make decisions earlier instead of spending a whole lot of money manufacturing or constructing a building. You're able to actually innovate your design, innovate your structure, and see what it can do and how it performs in the environment. There are companies like this company called people.co, right? It's a UK-based company, and what they basically have been doing, right, is going around cities. We've all used Google Earth and Google Map, right? You can see how to get to places. But what this company does, it goes into those buildings and uses technology like Metaport, like what we have here, right, to scan the interior of a building. So when for a real estate company or an owner looking to invest in a city or a building, they can actually see the asset physically on using their platform, right? That's people.co. Another good example, right, is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with virtual Singapore, right? Singapore is one of the cities that has successfully, before I say that, sorry guys, right? So people.co, and what I'm gonna show you with virtual Singapore, they use technologies like Autodesk Forma, right, which is part of your AEC cloud collections, right? And what this does allows you to create conceptual designs in the cloud, and you're able to grab contextual information using technologies like ArcGIS, where you get a whole lot of information to design your concepts, to start creating your digital twin, right? And this connects seamlessly into your cloud platforms like BIM Collaborate Pro. You can bring in your Revit design tools and actually start analyzing your work and calculating your sustainability, right? This is virtual Singapore. So what they've managed to do is generate a digital twin of the whole city, right? And anyone can go onto the platform and get information on the actual city, right? So instead of just going through Google Earth and looking at pictures, you can actually see how those buildings are constructed, how it performs. You can get some basic information, high-level information on structures. Right? So as an architect, if you're doing a project in Kenya, for example, you don't know the environment, you don't know what's happening in the city, you're able to go into a platform like this where there's digital information readily available and make better decisions, basically. Right? Okay, so this, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but all this information is available online. Okay, right? And I put that here so we can just see the aim. Also, this is from Royal Haskinen, right? And currently, when we're working, we're pursuing a goal to deliver sustainable continent, right? And to do this, we need to start driving digital information to make better decisions. Okay, and basically what digital twins are, for tech execs, we found in the industry now, we've got like around 70% of our technical people, these are architects, engineers, etc., right, that are really exploring and investing in this type of designing, right? And 20% of consumer electronic manufacturers have found that using digital twins has helped reduce scrap waste by 20%, and a $48 billion investment has been made in the industry so far. It's not much, right? But we can see there's a movement when it comes to that, right? And as we all know, we started off obviously in a 2D CAD environment, right? And a lot of us work in a space where we're doing BIM in the cloud. I actually discovered a client yesterday, right, who's been doing BIM for past 10 years, but has never touched anything in the cloud. Right? So what that means, they're not integrating with the rest of the industry, but when you start moving into BIM in the cloud, you start interacting with your owners and your investors, right? And what we want to try to get to a space where owners start owning that digital data that we work on. I know a lot of us in here, once you're done with a Revit project, it stays in your server somewhere, right? And it doesn't get handed over. What we still hand over is a folder with PDFs, DWGs, and a whole lot of owner and operational manuals, right? And obviously, there are challenges in the industry for operators mainly and owners, and 85% of them struggle with poor and fragmented data, right? And this method of working allows owners to actually make use of the intelligent models that we build, right? And you'd find in real estate, especially after COVID, that 60% of the space that they invest in is underutilized, right? And there's also 50% of it where maintenance is inefficient, and then mainly 30% of their assets, there's a lot of energy wasted due to ineffective asset operation, right? And it all boils down to how we start the project and how we deliver the project, right? At the bottom half of this little table here, you'll notice that design and construction costs are the least to a project, right? When an owner receives an asset, they get most of their income from running that facility, but most of their cost is facility maintenance cost, building operation costs, and business operations cost. So when we approach projects and we deal with owners and investors with this mindset, it will become more important for us to design and work and develop our projects, knowing that that's what we're trying to fix for those operators, right? So as I mentioned, the customer are the owners, right? The people that we're designing and building for, right? And if you look at this little table, this little image here as well, the drivers for this, the biggest one for me is health, safety, and sustainability, right? And what they normally look for is an increase in acid resistance. I'm not gonna read everything. Another driver here is operational efficiency, and then also capital project development, innovation, and revenue generation, right? So I know this, I'm supposed to be talking like an application engineer, Jay, but this is what drives the business. This is why we spend the time collaborating and coordinating the project so we can meet these goals for our clients, for our owners, right? So on a project, we all know how this works. The players in the project, you get your external project team, which is mainly us in this room, right? And we normally get involved in the planning and design and construction in the top left there, right? That information eventually needs to go through to whoever will be operating that business or that asset, right? And they look at, like I mentioned, the strategic programs, facility services, engineering and maintenance. They've got IT and support. And then there's also the business and finance when it comes to operating this building. For example, this building here, the owner doesn't think of, is your Revit model accurate? Do you have clashes or not? They're thinking, how am I going to make money from this asset, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Although as an external project team, we play a key role to make that goal become a successful outcome for us, for our players, right? And there's a type of data that goes around, right? So what different players in a project look for: assets, naming, space naming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that information comes from us in that BIM model, okay? Right, so what do you do when you get into a project and you've won a project and you need to find out what the goal is for this client, right? These are some of the type of questions you can ask, right? You can look at their experience in running property. So for example, if you look at Baldwin, you can ask them how much of the properties is getting rented out, how much money are you losing out on. That type of information informs how you would design as well. And at times we find ourselves creating too much data and most of it is never used as well, right? Okay, and I took this quote from a capital project executive, and they said, I want to identify opportunities for underutilized space to be repurposed and to generate potential rental revenue. Okay, so yeah, I know some of you guys are in the commercial space. I don't want to point out names, right? And it's very important to know how much revenue you're getting from your spaces. And some businesses do this exercise on a weekly basis, some others on a monthly basis, right? So we, using digital twins, are able to assist with that type of information, right? Another major thing to ask is who will be using the data, what data is needed and how will you collect it, and how will the data be maintained. I'll give you a little example. I got involved in a project for government, but it was for one of our clients, right? It was an 85,000 square meter building in Pretoria. I think, Steph, you remember it, okay? I got involved in the project when I think it was 3 years in, okay? And they were like 2 years away from handover, right? And in the document, in the AIR information requirement document, right, from the employer, from the client, at this instance it was government and WBHO. Okay, it's 85,000 square meter office space, okay? 2 years before handover, they've done design, they've started doing construction as well. They realized they were having a lot of coordination issues on site, so I came in just doing clashes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for some reason, we're ready to hand over, right? We read through the requirement documents from the client, and there was a little line there that everyone needed to hand over an asset information model, right? Which is a digital twin, okay? No one had modeled in that manner. So all the information in Revit looked right, it looked correct. Construction drawings looked correct, although there were clashes, but there was no information. The client wanted a digital asset at the end of the project. Right? I think that exercise took us another 2 years to get everyone to capture the information on site, remodel it back into Revit, and be able to hand over that digital asset back to the client. Right? So it's stuff like this. These questions, I'm not blaming the consultant. These questions were not asked by the people that were awarded that project. Right? So when you get a project, you need to ask this type of information to see who will use the data. The biggest thing in that project for me was the operator didn't have the right technology to actually use the data that they requested. Right? So there's also that problem as well. Okay. Right. And when we get to that type of project, when you're looking into your business, right, you need to ask yourself a few questions, and these are the drivers. Are your people aware of digital twins? Check your BIM maturity. It is quite important, right? And BIM maturity doesn't mean are you able to model a chair in Revit, right, or an elephant, right? Whatever it is. Okay, you need to be able to bring in the correct data and be able to collaborate with the rest of the team, right? Change management process is also quite important because you introduce new technologies and new processes and methods of designing, right? FM maturity is facility management maturity. It is pointless spending time creating a digital twin and handing it over to someone who can't use it. So everyone needs to be involved and has to be ready for that. And the most important one is team readiness. That involves training and getting everyone in. So when you approach your business to prepare them to produce a digital asset, you need to be sure of those drivers as well, right? So what does it mean for capital projects? What does digital twins mean for capital projects? During the build phase, they're able to validate the work using the model, right? What's happening on site can be compared to the model. That same 85,000 square meter project, we got to a point where we had to start bringing that coordination file that we used in ACC to site. Right, so if I'll give you an example, RFIs were raised on an Excel sheet. So subcontractor will go, I've got an issue here, the projector is not in the right place, I need to move it, take a picture, send it to the project manager puts it on an Excel sheet, makes a note, and then everyone was sitting for like 6 hours going through this. It was like a 5 gig Excel sheet with like 5,000 lines in it. So we started bringing the digital model that we're coordinating with into site, and whatever issue was there, we're able to open it up on the digital twin and in ACC on the BIM model, see if it was modeled correctly by Stephanie's team, right? If they were correct, then we'd know the contractor on site was incorrect, site instruction would go to the contractor. So it's stuff like that. So that's how you basically validate, right? You're able to have, I'm not gonna read everything, beyond the building space, you're able to turn over on time or budget, and you're able to actually start preparing for day one of operations, right? There is a software I will show you in a moment called Tandem. You can connect it to your digital twin and start testing, connect the asset on site or the equipment on site with your model in the cloud, right? And let it run for a month, like how we normally do before day one, right? Let it run for a month and actually collect data on how that equipment is operating. And you can actually predict how this asset would operate or would function once you start occupying it, and also for future proofing. Okay, it's quite similar for digital twin for owner projects. They look for process improvement, right? Staffing, planning, training, daily actions, who's sitting where, etc., etc., and also for smart building operations. Okay, so the fun part. Are we still good? Yes. Awesome. Okay, so how do we get there, right? I'm sure we're all familiar with AEC, right? Or architecture, electrical, construction solutions. Right, most of us use Revit, CAD, Inventor, all that other software, and a lot of us also working in the cloud. Right, so what those solutions help us to do, they bring in digital transformation, helping us to focus more on capital planning, BIM, maintenance planning, and processing. And all those little green boxes there is what applies to the operator, right? Like asset data, warranties, system integrations, IoT solutions. And currently, typically what's happening in the industry, this all happens through one person, for example, who's been working in the industry for 40 years, or operational manual with 40 pages or 100 pages of PDFs, right? And to be able to for example, do a system integration, there's a lot of paperwork that they go through, right? And to avoid the issue that we're having, right, currently, I'll show you a little module that's in Autodesk Construction Cloud. I should stop using acronyms, right? Autodesk Construction Cloud, right? And the main one is asset tracking. What I want to show you is a bit of asset tracking. And what it is basically is a process that allows tracking construction components throughout their life cycle, from design and manufacturing through construction to handover, right? And the reason this is necessary, like I've been saying, in projects is lack of visual representation, asset information is hard to get, like I've mentioned, and we have unreliable data. And what asset tracking does, it connects BIM to construction. So you can check any component asset that you have in your model and on site, right? And it's a component-centric approach to installation, quality, and commissioning, okay? And the idea here is to have your 3D models or 2D views and PDF sheets linked up to your assets, right? And pulling out information for field collaboration, project controls, taking your quality assurance and quality control, and then also helping with handover. There's a little video that shows how that would look. I'll just quickly talk over it, right? And yeah, so currently when we do assets, when we tag our assets in project, we tag it in Revit itself and then produce schedules to show what assets are there, right? Now in ACC, what you can do, you can go into your assets module and you're able to create a system, for example. This is a mechanical example. All that information is taken from your Revit model, right? You can assign issues that were related to those components, and you're able to track installation, see if it's accepted or not. And as you can see, that is sitting in the actual BIM model, right? And that information is then used to get handed over to the operator. So they'll be able to know, looking at your asset tracking in the cloud, they'll be able to know who installed it, when it was installed, what quality it has, et cetera, okay? Right? Okay, so very quickly, just to give you guys time to ask questions, right? How we do it, so there's a roadmap for this, right? So for example, if you're working with an existing structure, an existing asset, like I showed you the people or co company, they'll start off by scanning a physical asset or consulting with you guys, right? You'd use point cloud, scanning technology like that Faro scanner that we're seeing on there to scan the asset, bring it into BIM, you model it, and then from there include all this data using the asset stuff, right? Contractors now on site go in with mobile devices, right? So they're able to get that information from your design work, from your digital twin, and actually track and see what's being modeled or what's being constructed, right? And as you can see on there. And then there's technologies like, which I'll show you now, technologies like Holo Builder, right? And Holo Builder allows the contractor to go on site like with a 360 camera and capture progress on site, which goes back to the digital twin. It goes back to the central common data environment, right? And it sits in the cloud, and all that information still gets handed over to the client. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, cool. Right. Okay. Another use we do, there's all information taken from ACC. So it's a coordination, it's a cloud project, right? And we just took that data in ACC, put it on a Power BI template, right? Put a little image on there. And with this specific template, we're checking completion dates for power caps, for example. So a client or an owner, you sitting in office, you can keep track of the information that's happening on site. Information tracked by that Holo Builder can update your model and actually track what's been installed and what hasn't been installed, right? This example here looks at clashes, right? And this is basically a design stage, right? And at design stage, you're able to just communicate clashes and issues that are happening on the model, right? ACC data just taken into Power BI for better communication with your owners. Okay, right. That's what digital data looks like. That's how you can make use of that data by making use of business visualization software like Power BI. It doesn't always have to be Power BI, right? And the most important thing when it comes to data is setting it up correctly, right? So For example, in this instance, if we look at this boardroom, we need to know what the room name is, right? Room number, etc., etc., etc. So this exercise, it looks simple on the slide. You can agree with me on this. Try coordinating 12 people or 12 companies on a project to have the same name throughout all the different models. So you need to make sure that that data always correlates with all the different data units and bring it through into your project. Same thing would apply to geometry, right? And what this basically does, an approach we use, everyone uses a SMART acronym, right? I saw a Christian one today. That's weird. So it's a specific data, right? Manageable data, attainable data, relevant data, and trackable data. Okay, and that's the main thing that you need to look at when you're working on your project. That's just another Power BI example looking at an asset list, right? And just data once again sitting in ACC, just made easy to deal with. Okay. There's a software called Tandem. So Tandem connects directly to your BIM Collaborate Pro platform. So it'll take all the files in BIM Collaborate Pro, bring it into our digital twin tool, right? It is available on the BIM Collaborate Pro. And what people are using this for is to track all the information in the building. This software is what is used to connect what's on site to your digital twin. Right, so remember earlier I mentioned the biggest thing with facility managers, they don't have the correct tools to translate this, right? And with this, you're easily able to translate the information and you can track the information as well, okay? And just to show you quickly, I think there's, yes. So that's just a period checking how equipment has been performing and you're able to start doing predictive analysis on your asset, okay?